Welcome to the Pre-Snap Podcast presented by Line Star. All things fantasy football with a sprinkle of sports betting analysis as well. This is your Thursday night football edition. Week 7 in the NFL features the New Orleans Saints at the Arizona Cardinals. Both teams struggling this season, both teams 2-4. Alongside Tyler Weeman, I'm Shannon Somerville. Another Thursday night football matchup. We've seen some low-scoring affairs in these Thursday night contests. Both teams struggling in this one out of the gate. They had high expectations going into the season. However, at week 7, both teams really just struggling to find any sort of identity. Last week, the Cardinals put up just 3 offensive points against a Seahawks team that is 32nd in yards allowed. What gives for this Cardinals team?
That was interesting, too, just because the Cardinals have been able to move the ball and put up some points. And, the Seahawks have been able to do that against the bad Cardinals D, but they couldn't last week. So, yeah, it was an interesting game. Both these teams that we have Thursday are kind of interesting. I kind of think this is what we kind of thought, though. The Cardinals without D-Hop, we didn't really think they were going to be 4-2.
They've certainly struggled without DeAndre Hopkins, but guess who's back? D-Hop is back in action for this one. We'll talk about some stats that will absolutely blow your mind in terms of how much he means to this Cardinals team. We'll get into your daily fantasy projections, injury report, touchdown calls, prop bets, and, of course, our game picks. Let's start off with some injury reports here from our friends at Sports Injury Central, sickpicks.com. Check them out. We're going to go over our injuries for today. We've got quite a few of them, so buckle up in this one. First, we'll look at the Arizona Cardinals defense with a 6 score of 88.9 versus the New Orleans Saints offense with a 6 score of 79.1. Lots of issues there. For the Cardinals defense, cornerback Trayvon Mullins missed first few weeks. He's recovering from toe surgery, and nose tackle Rashad Lawrence underwent hand surgery. The New Orleans Saints offense, we don't even know at this point. It is Wednesday. We don't know what quarterback we're going to be seeing in this one because Jameis Winston's dealing with some back and ankle issues. He's limited. Andy Dalton, the backup, is also limited, though, in practice as he's dealing with a back injury as well. So, I mean, we don't know what's going on with this. It's one we're going to have to keep an eye on in this one. The offensive line, we just learned that Andrews Pete suffered a pec strain last week. Reports indicate he will likely miss this week. Tight end Adam Trotman suffered an ankle injury, did not practice. Wide receiver Chris Olave, here's a bright spot, suffered a severe concussion, was out last week, but he says he is good to go. However, wide receiver Jarvis Landry, knee issue, hasn't practiced, and wide receiver Michael Thomas, who's nursing a toe injury, hasn't practiced and is likely out in this one. What do you make of that battered Saints offense?
I think there's a couple things we need to pay attention to here. One, the quarterback situation, which is obvious. We have to pay attention to what the quarterback is. But either way, with both of these guys limited and banged up, we may see a little more Taysom Hill at quarterback, which is obviously interesting. And then also in the tight end spot, Adam Troutman. If he misses the game, Juwan Johnson is going to get a little bump up. And maybe Taysom Hill plays tight end a little bit more as well. So Taysom becomes kind of an interesting little piece on this slate.
Definitely. And Taysom Hill, we know, is a guy that finds the red zone quite a bit. Let's take a look at the Saints defense with a 6 score of 89.7. Marshawn Lattimore, the elite corner, will miss some time due to an abdomen injury. Huge loss there. And the Arizona Cardinals offense with a 6 score of 88.9. You've got Rodney Hudson on the offensive line, questionable with a knee injury. You've also got Justin Pugh on the O-line, season-ending knee injury. Running back James Conner dealing with some rib issues, and wide receiver Marquise Brown out with a broken foot. So the Cardinals also with their fair share of injuries as well. What do you make of things there in terms of some implications for fantasy?
Marshawn Lattimore being out is a big deal. D-Hop is going to have a little bit easier time, especially with Marquise Brown being out. Maybe a little more targets going D-Hop's way, so you got to like that. And then also with James Conner, we need to watch his status. He hasn't practiced this week. I expect him to be out again, so Benjamin should get a good little workload there.
these Thursday night games, short weeks, really hard for guys to get healthy in time for the game. So what we've seen the past couple of weeks on these Thursday night games is just teams, opting for caution. Except in the case of Tua Tagovailoa, apparently. However,
Dolphins.
We'll get back to
Dolphins.
Today's daily fantasy projections. And we'll start by looking at the Arizona Cardinals and some players we're looking at in terms of daily fantasy. Of course, we've got to look at Kyler Murray in this one. Now, he's had a bit of a disappointing season. He ranks 24th in quarterback rating, and for a guy who just got a $230 million deal, has not lived up to expectations. However, he's going up against a Saints defense that has also not lived up to expectations by any means. 32nd in quarterback pressures. They were expected to be one of the top defenses, but they have not lived up to that as well. Given that, what do you make of Kyler Murray's situation for fantasy?
Yeah, and the sledding for them without Lattimore is going to be a little bit harder here. So you got to like Kyler here. New Orleans Saints haven't been great versus the pass. They lost their best corner. The Cardinals have D-Hop back. And without Connor last week, the Cardinals actually let Kyler run. So he had over 100 yards rushing. If they're allowing him to run again this week, you got to really like that. Plus, historically, Kyler has been way better with DeAndre Hopkins in the lineup.
Kyler's also pretty good when he's got one of his playmakers back in the lineup. DeAndre Hopkins is back in this one. And I don't know about you, Tyler, but for me, he is a must start in daily fantasy. The impact he has had when he is in the game for the Cardinals is undeniable. In fact, I've got a ton of stats for you right here. Points per game, check it out. Going all the way up from 18.8 to 30.2 pass touchdowns per attempt, up to 55.9% red zone touchdown percent, up from 35% to 65.9%. Murray's completion percentage, 63% without, 71.6% with him, and then pass touchdowns, basically double, 1 to 1.9. Just incredible how big of an impact D-Hop has when he's in the game. He's going to be itching to go out there and make an impact in his first game back in over a year? Oh, almost a year.
Yeah, I think you got to play him here. I do like him for captain. I really wouldn't worry at all the fact that he's sat the last 6 weeks. He's going to be ready to go.
Yeah, he says, he knows he's not going to fix all of the problems on offense. However, he's a guy that can go absolutely tear it up in there, and I definitely see some increased motivation factor for him. It's also good. He'll be getting increased targets with Marquise Brown not there, so they're going to be leaning on him heavily in this one. If he starts making some big plays down the field, opens things up for your guy Kyler Murray, so that helps his fantasy value as well. At the running back position, Eno Benjamin is an interesting one. Week 7, 65 total yards. Season high, though, 15 attempts. So he's getting more of the load in this one. What do you see for his, forecast for tonight?
Yeah, I think he's a little too cheap still on both FanDuel and DraftKings. He is the guy without Connor there and Darrell Williams likely out. So he's going to get the workload. I wouldn't shy away from him. He is a good enough back. He's also been targeted a little bit. So I like him. He's dual threat. He'll make some plays to make it happen.
Let's take a look at the Saints. And we really don't know who's going to be in at quarterback. So what do you make of the situation there? We don't know if it's going to be Jameis Winston, Andy Dalton. What's your assessment?
I'm not sure which one it's going to be. It really could be either. The one thing that we can say, though, is I think Kamara has a little more upside if it's Andy Dalton. Dalton is better at checking down to Kamara, so maybe a couple more receptions for Kamara if it's Dalton. However, with Olave, I think he has a little more upside with Winston. Winston, at this stage in their career, is just better at throwing the football than Dalton. And so with that being said, depending on the quarterback, I would make my lineups accordingly. Also, I'd like to say that it's Dalton, we'll probably see a little more Taysom Hill than we would if it's Winston.
Okay, so something to keep an eye on. Again, right now we're taping the show on Wednesday, so we don't have any information. So keep an eye on that as we get closer to kickoff in that one. We're also looking at Alvin Kamara. He's had over 100 total yards the past 2 games. It seems like he's starting to get healthier, and his production has been increasing. He's also got 4 red zone targets the past couple of weeks. So it's only a matter of time before he breaks through and has one of his multiple touchdown games that he's known for having. And going up against this Arizona defense that actually ranks dead last in DVOA versus running backs in passing. So this could be a good game for him in the receiving end. What do you make of it?
Totally. It's a great spot for him. The workload for Kamara that he's been getting lately is just spectacular. 2 games in a row of 25 plus touches. The thing with Kamara is he's always been a super efficient rusher, but now he's actually getting the workload. So there's absolutely a spot for a giant game here. I like it. Arizona allows 32% more fantasy points when they're home. So I think you got to go to Kamara.
We also got to go to wide receiver Chris Olave, who is averaging 78 yards per game. The rookie from OSU missed last week with a concussion. However, he's back this week. Could see a lot of volume in this one. However, the Arizona pass defense is actually pretty good. They rank second in DVOA versus opposing team's number 1 wide receiver. Given that, how do you evaluate his prospects?
Patrick Mahomes would like a word with that stat. But they have been much better ever since they played the Chiefs that first game. So I do have to give you that there. But really, this is the situation where we likely don't have Landry, likely don't have Michael Thomas. Both have not practiced. Olave said he's good to go. He is a very good receiver. He's young, but he's coming on strong. He's had a huge target share when these guys are out. So I think you got to go back here.
All right. So all of that information for your daily fantasy lineups available linestarapp.com. Check it out. All the projections and your lineup optimizer as well. We've also got a new tool called Props Edge, which will help you in your prop betting. We have all the projections and the best edge you can find in terms of the sports books and also on Underdog Fantasy and on PrizePicks. If you don't already have those apps, links are below to that as well. If you're watching us on YouTube right now, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel and sign up for notifications as well so you can keep up with all the content we've got coming out. Now it's time for our touchdown calls of the game. Tyler, where are you headed for a anytime touchdown for Week 7 Thursday Night Football?
We're going to the man, Alvin Kamara. As I said, his workload has gotten way bigger lately. Arizona's allowing a lot of fantasy points on the ground, and he's going to run one in.
I'm going to D-Hop. Nuke Hopkins is seeing the end zone in this one, plus 120 for an anytime touchdown. He had 8 touchdowns in 10 games last year, one of Kyler Murray's favorite targets. And the Saints defense ranks 27th in DVOA versus opposing teams wide receiver 1. I think he could have a field day against them, especially with Marshawn Lattimore out in this one. Also, Jamar Chase had 2 touchdowns. Tyler Lockett had 2 touchdowns the past 2 weeks. So a lot of the wide receiver ones have been having a lot of success against this Saints defense. I'm saying D-Hop makes an entrance in his first game back in the NFL in quite a while.
I like it.
Let's take a look now at our prop bets for Week 7 Thursday Night Football. Who you got?
We're going Kyler Murray under 1.5 passing touchdowns. New Orleans ranked 10th in only allowing 1.2 passing touchdowns per game over the last 9. And Arizona passes 12% less when they're favored. They're favored in this game. Murray has only hit over twice this year, and in the last 10 games, he's only at like 40% too. So I'm going under 1.5.
I'm going Alvin Kamara over 32.5 receiving yards. He's averaging 33.75 receiving yards on the season, and he's getting healthier each week. We've seen his production go up quite a bit. He's been dealing with some various injuries throughout the season, most recently that rib injury. However, he's getting healthier, and we're seeing him average over 100 total yards the past 2 weeks. Also, when you look at this Arizona Cardinals defense, they actually rank dead last in pass DVOA versus running backs. So I'm saying Kamara's in for a big game over 32.5 receiving yards.
Yeah, I like that one. I actually almost did his rushing prop, but I saw you had already put down the receiving, so I was like, yeah, I'll go somewhere else.
Let's go.
Yep.
All right. game picks in this one. Two teams that are on struggle street, as you like to say, Tyler.
I do.
The Arizona Cardinals are the favorites in this one, 2.5 points. The game total, 44.5. What's your play here?
This is a tough one. I really could see this either way. I guess I'll just go Cardinals with D-Hop back, a little extra energy. So
I'm also going Cardinals in this one with DeAndre Hopkins last season, 8-2. Remember they had that great start out of the gate, and then he got hurt, and they were 3-4 the rest of the way. I think DeAndre Hopkins is such a difference maker for that team. Also, you got to think at this point, the Cardinals have been such a disappointment that Cliff Kingsbury's probably playing for his job at this point, or coaching for his job, rather.
He is.
And on the hot seat.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big motivating factor.
Absolutely on the hot seat. I hope he goes because this offense just has not worked.
I mean, they just cannot get it together. It was shocking to see them not be able to put up points against the Seattle defense.
They should be better than they are on both sides.
Especially with that paycheck Kyler Murray's getting, and I know they...
Yeah, well, but they took away that the studying aspect
out of the contract.
So maybe that has something to do with it.
If you're not familiar to Kyler Murray, there was a big story about how he had in his contract that he had to study a certain amount every week. And then there were some leaks that he might be playing video games a little too much. And somebody did actually a correlation with his stats and his performance versus when the release of Call of Duty was, and his stats took a dive in that scenario.
Unfortunately for Cardinals fans,
is there a new video game coming up? Oh, jeez.
I've seen it all over Twitter. There's 2 different games that are important to Kyler Murray, and they're coming out.
Well, hopefully they can right the ship because we both picked him for our game on Thursday night. I'm sure D-Hop will help him out with that. Maybe he'll keep him accountable.
D-Hop's got it.
Nuke's got it. All right, that's going to do it for a Thursday night football preview. Remember, if you're watching us on YouTube, like this video, subscribe to our content, and sign up for notifications so you can keep up with all the content we're coming out with. Man, Sports Equinox tomorrow.
It's crazy.
We're going to have our basketball content coming out as well. We'll have some props shows for you and new shows for basketball, football, playoffs time.
We got all of it going on right now.
Tyler's about to go over to Petco Park to root on his
Go Padres. Let's do it.
Good luck in all your betting and daily fantasy. We'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Have a good one, guys. Bye.